I didn't want to wreck him. It just I had to stay on the track, and he didn't give me any room. It just, we both collided. That's the only thing I feel bad about. I'm more upset with Greg Biffle. He's the most unprofessional little scaredy cat I've ever seen in my life. He wouldn't even fight me like a man after. He needs a freaking whooping. I'm going to give it to him.
Good day, race fans, and welcome to the Intentional Wreck Podcast, the podcast made by race fans for race fans, from the casuals to the lifelong gearheads. My name is Jeff, and I'm here with my fellow hosts, Corey and Finn. We got all three of us back here this week as opposed to just a pair. You can find us on YouTube, Spotify, and iHeartRadio under the name Intentional Wreck. You can also find us on Twitter and TikTok under the handle @IntRecPod. That's @INTWRECKPOD. And I did not say Tic Tac that time. I'll save that for the end of the show. Also, just a little bit of podcast business for you folks, something that's going to be very interesting. We are now a caution flag sponsor for the Bandit Racing League. For all you iRacing fans out there, folks who want to tune in on Twitch, make sure you check out, and YouTube, you check out the Bandit Racing League. It's Wednesday nights at 9 p.m. on YouTube. We'll put the link in the bio for that. Also, if you are an iRacing League and you need sponsorship, please email us at our email in the YouTube bio. We'd be happy to talk about that. Fellas, we're all together. We're all here. We got a bunch of wild, silly shit to talk about and some racing. We've had a few races that have gone by since the last time that we got together. We've had some interesting news and all kinds of cool stuff that's been going on, and we got a bunch to talk about and pack in here. What have y'all been doing for the last couple of weeks?
Well, I've been moving. So you guys can see behind me. I've left the old place. I'm in a new place. I'm trying some new things, and life has been absolutely turned on its head for the last couple of weeks. So I appreciate my my Intentional Wreck brothers holding it down here for me while I was in the middle of this life stuff. But everything is well. Everyone is well. Couldn't be happier. Everything's fine. And there was racing on top of all of that.
A lot of racing. A lot of good racing. And I'm sunburnt. We'll talk about you can't see it on the camera, but I am red from my Darlington trip.
I was going to say, you got a few Darlington stripes there.
Yeah, a couple all over the body. I feel sore and old. I got these plantar fasciitis socks that have gels on the bottom of my feet because I wore flats to the race, and I thought the VIP access was going to lead to go-kart trips everywhere. It did not. Go-kart trips are for the cool people. But more to come about the Darlington experience. It was some interesting stories to share with you guys. But Denny won Dover. I don't remember anything, which tells you everything you know about Dover. I will say this: it didn't rain.
Well, yes. Wasn't Larson chasing him down at the end?
I think he was, but
Denny just aero blocked him to the finish, if I remember right.
I believe the direct quote from Mr. Finley was, "Aero blocking is fucking boring."
Yeah,
as we talked about that.
I mean, so here's the deal.
If I remember right.
Here's the deal, and we'll talk about it because Darlington was a race that I expected to be a lot of the same. It ended up being a really, really interesting race both days, which is I try not to judge a race too much on like the leader. For example, in my heart, I wanted Larson to run him down and pass him. So when he doesn't, I'm able to go, oh, it's aero blocking. But I can't tell you how many times I've seen a situation where my driver was leading and somebody's trying to run him down, but they did a good job at managing the gap, saving the tire, and then taking that lane away from the driver when it goes. And it's easy to blame aero blocking, but at the end of the day, while Dover isn't like the biggest passing track on the circuit, you kind of know what you're going to get. Aero is always going to be a part of it. And yes, you can block a little bit more in these cars than you could in other cars. I think the what we saw the last 2 weeks shows that aero blocking isn't too big of an issue at the tracks where I think it matters. Do I care on a short track if there's a little bit of aero blocking? Like, remember when I think short track, I'm thinking like in this case, Dover and Bristol, they're the only ones that race on, like, they don't race a short track package. Which obviously has its own problems, and we'll talk about a cool thing NASCAR is probably doing to test this out. I like it. I didn't hear about it till today. I'll shock you guys with it later. But just like at the higher speeds on the higher tracks, again, Kansas, people were passing like crazy. Darlington, I think Barry worked his way up from like 33rd to like 4th. I'm saying plenty of guys were absolutely flying through the field. Tire management was insane, and the ability to pass. And you know what? Even getting to catching and passing the leader was possible. I mean, again, we'll get to the Darlington race, but Kansas, fantastic race. I mean, Buescher pretty much put himself in the right position, and for Larson to, I mean, let's go back to the restart, right? It was Denny in the inside lane, right? Denny, Buescher, Larson, was it?
Larson was second on the inside.
Second on the inside, right? And then I can't remember if it was Buescher on the outside on the restart, but I know he took it 3 wide and just ended up, I mean, God, I wish I would have gone back and kind of rewatched it. That's the downside of doing the podcast every couple races, but just like to Buescher did everything he needed to do. Got up there, got the lead, was battling hard, was running perfect, and for Larson just kind of time it perfectly. It really reminded me of the first race I went to, the 2005 Coke 600, where Jimmy got on the outside of Labonte, and it was just perfect. He just stuck it in there, said, "Fucking, I'm hitting the wall, or this thing's gonna stick." He stuck it in there, pulled side by side. What did you guys feel about the door banging? Fair game, come to the line, didn't turn him, all good.
I bet he's gonna get it back at some point this season.
Yeah, I don't think Buescher was too upset about that in the moment. You know, he squeezed Larson up. They had, kind of hit the wall, and Larson was like, "I need to go down and kill his momentum." So he goes down and gives him a bump. I think that's fair game.
I think it was a back and forth because I think on the first point, it was a matter of like trying to come down and gain position on Larson's end.
Right.
And then I think on the second part, it was a matter of Buescher trying to see if he would give.
Right.
And on the last lap, in trying to get to the start finish as fast as you possibly can,
right.
Larson's not giving an inch up the track at that point. So,
right.
Buescher's got to find a spot.
He was also, Buescher needed to be 2 feet higher.
Yes.
In 3 and 4.
Yeah, he definitely.
Like he couldn't leave a whole car width. Like that was his mistake. Honestly, I thought if you're gonna let him get you make him hit you in the right rear, not door to door.
I would say I'm taking the high lane, and you have to slide job, like throw it in the corner, get super tight, be able to manage that, and then that's the way to do it. And you give these 1.5 ringers, these dirt track boys, the outside like that. I mean, he squeezed it in there. Credit to him. That's why he's considered, the best NASCAR driver in the world. So fantastic finish there. Not to be forgotten was the fantastic finish for 3rd place, because if those two would have spun each other, it would have been Elliott and Truex battling it out. They were side by side coming to the line, and Elliott seems to have really turned this around. I think I saw Elliott has 5 top 5s or top 10s in the last 7 races.
Yeah.
Elliott is turning it up. Turning it up, having fantastic day, turning shit days into decent days. And I think since that win, we've really unlocked Chase Elliott a little bit. And he's starting to come alive. And now it's really looking like Larson and Elliott are the stronger Hendrick cars. Not that Byron hasn't been racing well by any means, but right now I think just the hot rod right now is that 9. And it could be because 24's got 3 wins. He's well locked into the playoffs. Could be them experimenting with different setups and different things. So I don't really attribute that to them struggling in any way.
That's part of one of the things I was just about to bring up, though, is I just had to call up the standings because I knew Elliott had climbed up really high. At this point, I mean, for the last couple of weeks, it had been there. But if we look at, where we were a month ago compared to where we are now, Elliott's got 1 win. Byron has 3. Elliott's got more points.
Right.
Like the surge is real as far as his finishing position, as far as where he's getting himself and actually putting himself in a position to be close. Elliott's got 5 top 5s right now.
Right. So I was
he's
right.
There
so,
every week now.
5 top 5s in the last 7 races. That's, 5th at Richmond, 3rd at Martinsville. Granted, he did qualify well in those races. Obviously, the win at Texas, 5th at Dover, 3rd at Kansas. And you know what? He was awful at Darlington qualifying wise, and worked his way up through the field, started 31st, ended up 12th. So in my mind, that's one of those, that's a good day. That's when they're operating on all cylinders. That even when they start way in the back at a track that's extremely hard to pass, to come home 12th. was huge. So that was right. And then Denny, top 5 with that. And then, of course, now the rest. I think there's a lot of good disparity in kind of the middle of the field right now. As a Bowman fan, it's been a little bit frustrating because we're watching all 3 of those cars just win races and look extremely fast. Bowman's led 6 laps this season. I'm like, come on, where?
He's fighting with his spotter in the middle of Dover.
Oh,
Well, Finn, tell me this, because I definitely want to talk about that part. Does it feel oddly quiet for the amount of success that Chase Elliott had? I mean, like maybe it's just because I'm kind of used to seeing, just because Denny and Chase have their own history, so you tend to hear and see some things. But like, I don't know, Chase Elliott fans aren't typically notorious for being quiet. You know what I'm saying? And it's interesting to me
Yeah,
that it feels like it's oddly quiet for how well
yeah,
Chase
you're
is
not
doing.
wrong, dude. You're not wrong.
It's kind of strange, man.
Yeah.
Like
Well,
you
well-
usually, like in this case, you would kind of hear a lot. Like you could hear Dawsonville from here,
Right.
like, when Chase is running
well,
well.
here's how I felt about it, right? Like growing up in NASCAR, obviously the most popular driver was the 8 of Dale Jr. And also worthy of noting, I believe Teresa Earnhardt is like losing the like something regarding that 8 number. So we might see that 8 number, like the font, come back into racing. Dale Jr. might be able to get it and run that number, and merchandise will be able to be released with that 8 scheme. I don't know if we've talked about it a lot, Corey, but there's a lot of bad blood between Teresa Earnhardt and Dale Jr. I don't think that's his mother. I think
It's
that's
a stepmom.
it's a stepmother, and I think that there's a lot of resentment there, and there's been some issues, and I think the 8 is going to finally kind of get out from under her ownership. So that's interesting enough about Dale. But point is, Dale Junior fans were always again annoying to me growing up because it's like Roll Tide fans. I mean, honestly, the overlap between Roll Tide fans of the early 2000s and Dale Junior fans of the early 2000s is pretty much 1 to 1.
Well, hold on though, because I don't know if that's the right comparison. Because like,
Just
if that's the
annoying.
case, you were the Roll Tide because Jimmy won.
No. What I mean by that is like people that like in the South, like if you were a NASCAR fan in the early 2000s, it was like 80% of the people that were fans of NASCAR were split between the 24 and the 8. And all of the senior fans went directly to the 8, right? Like that seemed to be where I would say most sponsorship was, and Junior's winning. And part of Junior being the most popular driver was that Gordon was the like most hated driver. You didn't just love Dale Jr. You hated Hendrick Motorsports. Like that was just the thing, right? And I say this because there was a complete transition. Most popular driver went straight from Dale Jr. forever to being Chase Elliott. The thing that I see, I wouldn't say problem, but the thing is that what came with Chase Elliott was the lack of a rival. It was no longer we love Chase and we hate somebody else. It was just we just love Chase Elliott obnoxiously, you know. And it's not like the driver. It's not like Dale Jr. like ever had like a little like, was a heel or anything like that. He was great for the sport. I think Chase is great for the sport. I just think that they're less annoying to me. I don't hear that noise all that much because there isn't like a I love Chase and I hate this driver. It's really just all the people that either like hate Denny and hate Kyle or love Kyle, right? So that's how I feel about it. I'm not too concerned. And maybe because I'm a Hendrick guy, I guess the Elliott love doesn't really like rub me the wrong way. I'm not annoyed by it. I'm like, cool, the 9. I saw it as like a passing of the torch from Jimmy, down to the 9.
It's less so much of like I don't like hate it.
Mhm.
It's just generally like and maybe this is just a matter of how you filter the noise, but like that's the thing, is that it's just the amount of the noise. Like
It's
when Chase
quieter
is
than
winning,
you would think it would be.
yeah, when
Like we're
is
hearing
winning,
less about it, right?
right? When that's happening, like when Chase Elliott is successful, like generally most of NASCAR social media, like it's a lot of 9s. It's a lot.
True.
Like,
Well, I will
a
say
lot
that,
of people
yeah.
climb out of the woodwork. You know what I mean? Like you just hear a lot
Right.
as though.
Right. But NASCAR
You
has a
know?
lot to talk about. Like this year alone, we've seen Atlanta, one of the closest finishes of all time. The Ryan Sieg finish in Xfinity with Sam Mayer, one of the closest finishes all time between a big team and a very, very small Xfinity Series team. And then we got Kansas last week. And then I believe there was another extremely close finish. Um, or maybe it was just the fact that like we just had such good finishes that haven't involved the 9 that while the 9 had his glory run at Texas, was able to win the restart and hold him off. And the finishes in NASCAR this year, we've really been spoiled with just some really good big things. I mean, the Brad news, Brad K breaking that streak again. We'll get to Darlington soon. There's just a lot of things that kind of, I wouldn't say overshadow the 9, but I think he likes where that's at. If Chase Elliott has a win and 5 top 5s in the last 7, he's not being talked about. I'm sure he enjoys the shit out of that. Allows them to focus, lock in, return to championship form. Because right now there's 300 cars that are operating on all cylinders, and then the 48, which they put a V6 in for some reason. It's brutal, but
every week.
I mean, for what it's worth, I mean, I'm talking my trash, but Bowman actually has had pretty solid. I think he's up there in terms of average finish, and that's great that he's up there in average finish and he's racing well. I mean, he's got in his
4
last,
top 5s.
he got since Martinsville, he's gone 8th, 37th. I think he got up in some accidents. 5th, 8th, 7th, and 8th. So we're on 4 straight top 10s. 5 in his last 6. So like Bowman's racing fine, but there's not that race winning speed. But I'm good with it. And that was Kansas. Fantastic. Always one of the greatest races of the year. I'm going next year. That one sold it for me. I'm going to Kansas next year. Let me know if you guys want to fly out.
NASCAR, the one time where Kansas becomes the destination spot,
Oh yeah.
It's kind of
A
wild.
weekend of racing and barbecue.
Oh, that would be
sign me up for that, yeah.
extremely lit. Yeah, early May, so it's not probably too hot out there just yet because we're gonna get absolutely cooked
Probably
in 2 weeks.
cold. I'm betting it's cold.
We're gonna get cooked in 2 weeks. I'll tell you that. If Darlington this week was any indication of what's gonna happen to us at the 600, bring the sunscreen, fellas.
Yeah, buddy.
So
I'm a pasty white.
Darlington. Let me talk a little bit about what I went through, and then I mean, the first thing that Jeff said when he joined the Discord call today was he starts ripping into Chris Buescher's frustrations post race. So I'm excited to talk about that. But let me tell you a little bit about this. First of all, I'm a TV star, so you're honored to be on the podcast with me. I'm famous. I'm officially made it. For anybody that wants to know, lap 49, I was on TV in the Xfinity race. Go look at me. I didn't know I was going to be on TV. I was just sitting there in the stands looking like a doofus. But pretty much as a guest to Silver Thunder, Nate, Matrix Apparel, they make crew shirts for DGM Racing, and this week they made the ones for Alpha Prime Racing. Alpha Prime, part of the Darlington throwback. Their driver, Ryan Ellis, ran a throwback to Days of Thunder, the very popular Tom Cruise NASCAR movie. And so they had,
The cold trickle.
Cold trickle. And as a result, Nate made some custom throwbacks for that, and he got his brand was on the quarter panel right in front of the left rear tires. So we had pit access all weekend. It was super dope to go down there. Got to see a lot of those schemes up close, get some great pictures. I did not get to meet SVG, but I did look at him and give him a nod and take a picture of him. So a win's a win. A win's a win.
Good day, mate.
Got to do the whole. I really like just being on pit road. We got to be in the line of people that they all line up next to the cars while they're doing the anthem and the invocation, stuff like that. So that was really cool. But pretty much during the broadcast, the 43 had to take a pit stop. That was Ryan Ellis's car, and so they were highlighting his scheme. And then after doing a little flashback to the movie, and when they were filming it, they come out of that and they're showing us on the screen, and we didn't even realize it. We were just sitting there, just chilling, watching the race, and somebody texts Nate, and he's like, "Is that Finn?" Like they recognized me first because Nate's got all the hair, and he's like looking at his phone, like, "Is that you? Are you guys on TV?" And I was like, "That's crazy," because we just went up to the grandstands. We weren't like at a pit box when that happened. We walked up to the grandstands. We found some random seats that we shouldn't have been in because I don't think we technically had tickets to the race. And I guess they just found us in the crowd. I guess we're wearing bright neon, so that's that.
Yeah. Very cool, man. Congratulations on the big contract, getting on TV. Gotta love that.
I should have worn my intentional wreck podcast hats, but
so when's the Stardom sponsorship money coming into the pod?
It's here. It's here.
When are we getting our Dirty Mo Media style?
Oh
studio,
yeah. Shit. I don't know. They had everything on me, but I didn't have the word podcast on me, so they didn't know.
Yeah, that's a good point. They didn't actually know what it was.
But let's talk about the Xfinity race. Did you guys watch it at all? I know, Jeff, you said you kind of turned it on. It was my first.
I flipped it in towards the later stages.
So, let me talk about it. So, we were in the Xfinity garage at Darlington. It's big enough to have 2 different garages. So, we were in the Xfinity garage, just hanging out, chilling, watching the cars. And I was waiting on Nate. He was doing something, and I was sitting by this little entryway, and I didn't realize that this is where all the drivers come in and stuff. So, like, drivers are kind of, like, people are walking up, and all these people are walking up there with their die cast and their things to get signed. It's all these guys that are there for memorabilia. And one driver, let's see who had come through. Eric Almirola came through. A bunch of people were getting stuff signed by him. John Hunter Nemechek came through, dabbed him up. And then he kept going. I did get a little to meet a bit with Brandon Jones, Daniel Dye, Matt DiBenedetto. They came through. But most guys were kind of getting all that, people were sprinting to them, getting photos. And like one guy, I can't remember who it was, but he was walking through. Everybody went with him. And so I wasn't getting, autographs and stuff. I was just kind of sitting there chilling. And then I see the bright, like, HendrickCars.com fire suit to like my left. A guy's just standing there, and he's like waiting on somebody. He's like looking and just kind of standing. And I turn and I look and I go, and I double take and I go, that's William Byron. I didn't realize he was racing at 17 that weekend. So I look at him and he just looks at me and he nods, and I go, I was like, do you often get to be out here without getting mobbed by people? And he was like, no. Like, he just like looked at me. He was just like, no, I always just get mobbed at all times. And then I said something along the lines of, I was like, well, Larson raced the 17 at Darlington last year, and I was like, Kyle wrecked it last year. Are you gonna win it? And he was like, I'm gonna try. And then he got a flat tire like 20 laps into the race. It was like 3 laps down. Spent the whole race battling back. I think he ended up on the lead lap, but he could never he just spent the whole race a lap down in the teen, like driving around with the guys in like the teens. Didn't get anywhere. So that was fun. I met with Brandon Jones. And I had forgotten that there was a big controversy around the finish of the Dover Xfinity race. And when I had checked the app, it was wrong. And it said Brandon Jones had won. But I forgot that they fixed the app. They corrected it. And I can't remember Ryan Truex Jr. ended up winning that race. So I forgot that Brandon Jones didn't win Dover. So I took a picture with Brandon Jones, who is like 4 feet tall. And I was like, hey, man, congrats on the win at Dover. And he goes, I didn't win Dover. And then just walked off. And I was like, oh, shit, you didn't win Dover.
We thought you were just trolling.
Dude, my bad, brother. Fuck. My bad. So, Brandon Jones, if you watch the Intentional Reg podcast, my apologies, my friend.
I'm sure he does.
Big Xfinity.
Friend of the pod.
Following. friend of the pod, basically. So, he hates me. Also, he ran a Dale Jr. throwback scheme, and Menards is his sponsor, and they didn't get to run. He had to run the bright yellow Menards color. Does that make sense? It's a Dale Jr. Hellman's Mayo throwback that has like a distinct yellow color, but they were making him run the bright neon that like Blaney has when he runs Menards.
Right.
That was so lame because the scheme looked really good, but I know it was Menards, not him. And that was lame. It was really cool to see.
I suspect Menards gives the series a lot more money than Hellman's does nowadays.
Well, they were just throwing it back. Like all of the sponsors did a great job. Like the people that did the car that Nate sponsored. Their normal color scheme is like blue and white. So they redid their logo completely to allow for this. So I think if you buy into that stuff, that's just going to help your brand a little bit more with sponsorship. The Xfinity race was cool. Custer went out to a big lead, kind of dominated the first maybe 30 laps of the race, and I think they had a competition caution, and the front tire changer's gun on the left side failed, so the rear tire changer had to come up and finish it. As a result, he got yanked back to the back. Now, it was really fun watching him drive through the field. So, like,
Right.
in terms of passing and just, like, visually at the race watching, that was cool. Watching Byron have to try to battle through his stuff was cool. SVG, shout out to SVG, right? Practice and qualifying got rained out for Xfinity. So, we're talking about one of the hardest ovals on the circuit, and he's just got to go figure it out. That was really cool. He rode around in, like, the early 20s, late teens all day, and then with about 15-ish laps to go, something clicked, and he passed about 5-6 cars. I think he finished 15th. So that was cool. Shout out to him. Haley Deegan spun. A lot of misogynistic slurs were heard in the crowd. I will not repeat those, but per her Twitter, was not her fault. And then if you watch the race on TV, nobody could catch and pass Allgaier. He absolutely dominated the race. It was a complete snooze fest in terms of P1, because I think none of the cars that truly had speed were able to get up there. There was Eric Almirola, who passed Austin Hill and got really close, and then the late pit stop after a late caution, he got marred back in like 4th or 5th. So had nothing for Allgaier. That was that. All right, that's the Xfinity wrap up and experience. I got sunburnt as hell. It was bad. We got like super, like 30-40 mile an hour, like thunderstormed on Friday when we went up there for the truck race. So didn't get to do much up there.
The SPF.
What about now? How was the actual, like, as far as the actual like track itself? I mean, just the general, like, I mean, you've been to a few other tracks around the
Right.
within NASCAR. Like, how does it measure up?
I enjoyed it. So I went to Darlington when I was a kid. I went to I think it was a 2004 race. I think Greg Biffle won that race. It was Biffle or Gordon. And what I remember this is Darlington used to be a lot narrower, right? Now they ride on the apex. I can't remember if they did a track reconfigure or what, but I remember, first of all, it used to be flipped. So what is 1 and 2 used to be 3 and 4, right? So the track has been flipped from its early config. And I can't remember if they made some changes to banking or just in general on some stuff, but it was always barely a 2-lane track. Like, you could just fit 2 cars, but it used to be you could not side-by-side race at Darlington in the turns. And because it was so banked and because it was so narrow, you really couldn't see anything right in front of you. You could only see when they exited the turn. They had to hit the turn and set sail into the turn, and then the back stretch. And then when you're on the front stretch, you just couldn't see anything. And I remember being sour about that, but I was also a kid and short and, whatever. But going back, I think it was a really fun infield. There were the merch haulers, but then there was also a lot of stuff outside of the track in terms of merchandise and that vintage stuff that people sell. Good energy. The track visibility was great. You're able to kind of see everything. I really like, if you go to Darlington, I really would say sit off of 3 and 4. It's really cool to see how bent sideways those guys get coming out of 3 and 4. That's the harder turn. The first turn, they enter low, come high, and they'll ride they're almost full throttle, completely riding the high lane around. That's cool. A lot of passing there. But 3 and 4 is where you literally earn your stripes. Like 3 and 4, there's a lot of off throttle time. Those guys are struggling to get around, and then they're trying to get back in the gas as hard as they can. They're slipping and sliding off 3 and 4.
Yeah.
So I enjoy it. I would absolutely recommend going to Darlington for a race. It seems like as we've gotten a little bit further into next gen, there's quite a bit more passing. I mean, we kind of mentioned it earlier, but now kind of transition to the Cup race. Josh Berry had a great day, drove from the back of the field up. Chase Elliott had a solid day, drove from the back of the field up through the field.
Ford in general had a good day.
Right. I was extremely impressed at the restart that Keselowski had and how long he held it side by side with Reddick. Like, I get that he was burning all the tires, so if that was a 50-lap run, he eventually would. And he kind of did, right? If you think about it, once
he faded, yeah.
Once Buescher got past him, he definitely faded and was kind of not in position to win that race. How did we feel about, I'm going to say this, Chris Buescher sold me. I'm a Chris Buescher fan. Watching him come up and just, bump the shit out of Brad. Like, that was cool for all you NASCAR Total Team Control It looked like Brad Keselowski pressed the thumbstick, went back into the Buescher car, and then pushed himself forward and then switched back. Like, just trying.
To that same point, like, it was even better. Like, to me, it was even better. Like, the push was good. But it wasn't just the push, it was the move afterwards. Because if you remember right, he came up and gave him the push, and then he let the battle ensue up in front of him, and then he just said, yoink.
He just
and
waited.
Found his way inside and got up to the lead.
Like, again,
great move.
We're teammates everything up until the last 10 laps, right?
Yep, exactly.
But Buescher did everything right to help his teammate. And, you know, we'll talk a bit about the thing that he said to Reddick afterwards, but he points out about I don't have the sticker on the car. I don't have the win this year. And you could tell that he knew how much a win would help with Brad and his teammate and his team owner and stuff like that. So I believe Chris when he when he says those things, because again, he could have just let them, sit back there, keep his tires fresh, wait till they eventually wreck each other. And he kind of did. But when he got a good run, did he do that the first time? No. When he got a crazy run, first thing he did, and if you don't remember, that car was already kind of junked. He had got caught up in some contact earlier in the race, and the front of that car was already junked. I think it was the same situation that Truex had gotten a lot of damage on as well. So the front of that car was already crumpled. So he was just like, I'm going to help him no matter what, even risk further damage to his car. It sold me as in terms of a teammate. And kind of solidified, to me, this was a really, yes, the last year Buescher going 3 for 5 was crazy, but now to see how well Brad's been racing, me and you talked about it on the other podcast, Jeff, the 2 back-to-back second place finishes, racing pretty solid on everything except the tracks we know Brad's not good at, and then now to get a win, just to get that off your chest, really feel like RFK is in such a great spot. So much speed, back-to-back 1.5 miles that they got speed. Now we're going to turn around and go to Charlotte. If you ain't got them in your fantasy team, what are you doing? You know what I'm saying? It should be Larson, RFKs, Hamlin, Reddick.
Chase Elliott.
Or Elliott, you know what I'm saying? There's a lot of guys going to 600 that are racing with a lot of speed at these tracks, and then we're going to one of the best in the business at it. So, first of all, Jeff, my question to you is, was Tyler Reddick's move dirty, worthy of getting shoved post-race, or are you fine?
No,
you don't think so?
So I'm going to preface this in general. I don't have any problems with Buescher, and I understand him being emotional. I get being emotional in that situation, and also I don't think he's being disingenuous, but also it's a little excessive, guy. The thing is, yes, things are pumped up, things are emotional there. Tyler Reddick did nothing but pour apologies on you when he got out of that car. There was no situation in which this was confrontational from the 45. He knew there was a problem. He knew he was going to be mad. He immediately was attempting to try and make it known that he knew something was wrong. And Buescher is just flying off on him. And to that, I'm just take it back a notch, dude. Because the other part that gets me is, that's not your teammate. That's not somebody that even drives the same manufacturer car as you. Y'all are not even really in the same universe outside of performing within the same sport and making sure that you are both racing safely and everything else, which to that I totally understand. But to the same point, dial it back, bro. If he was going to Keselowski and saying something like that, if he's going to somebody that's on his team or somebody that has an affiliation and he's coming at him that way, I'm okay, sure, that's fine. But bro,
he didn't punch him.
Back.
He didn't punch him. Now, Reddick was smart to keep his fucking helmet on. That's a big Texan coming. I know he's got the mustache, but that didn't come with no muscle.
He did. This is the thing, is the aggression that Buescher was bringing to that confrontation.
Yeah. Dude, if it was Ty Gibbs, we might have seen somebody die.
swing at him.
Did you see Ty Gibbs' Instagram post? He was like, all right, I'm going to head out as Buscher's like stomping past him and he's just drinking his little drink and he's just nodding all the way like, I'm out of here. I ain't getting in all that. He's like, I'm keeping my head low.
Yeah.
Here's my thoughts.
Hold on.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Is it my turn now? Okay. I'm going to take the other side of this to no one's surprise. Reddick wrecked the shit out of him.
He did.
He wrecked the shit out of Buscher, dude. It wasn't even close. He was not clear by 5 feet. It was not close. Reddick tried to slide job him, and it looked like somebody in the Bandit Racing League trying to slide job somebody. It was ass. And yes, of course Reddick was apologetic, because he just got done wrecking the shit out of a guy who has no wins, whose manufacturer has no wins, whose team has no wins. Ford barely has any drivers in the playoffs right now.
I'm sorry, I didn't realize that was Tyler Reddick's fault.
No, it's not Tyler Reddick's fault, but there is such a thing as respectful racing, and Reddick did not do that. That was the opposite of respectful racing. He could have lifted. He could have not tried to slide job.
He was trying to back out.
No, he wasn't.
That's the first thing he says.
Yes,
after he back out.
After he threw it in there and realized, oh shit, I'm not making the turn.
It's easy to be like, oh, I was trying to back out. After he wrecked his shit,
here's
like he put him in the wall, dude. It was not even close. And I was sitting there pulling for Buscher, like, you got this, dude. You got this. And I'm like, what is Reddick doing? He's not clear. He's not. Oh no! And then boom, they're both in the wall. And it's like there was so much damage to both of those cars that it was pretty obvious how hard Reddick put him in the wall. I understand what you're saying, but like that's the second week in a row that Buscher basically got wrecked out of a win. Like what Larson did wasn't quite as egregious, but it was pretty egregious too. So it's like if everyone's just going to start bullying Chris Buscher as he races around Kyle Larson and Tyler Reddick and all these guys with all this talent at the front of all these packs, they better be ready to get run over because he is going to run them over. And it will be justified and it will be merited. And I don't want to hear, well, if I come on here and say Buscher just got done wrecking the shit out of Tyler Reddick, but he was trying to back out of it, then I'm wrong. Like, that was not, it's easy to say I was backing out of it after you wrecked the shit out of the guy.
I want to
still wreck him.
Yeah. And also, he did it with 8 laps to go. Like, first of all, you would ran him down. And I want to point something else out real quick, because he ran him down, clearly had the faster car. Buscher was struggling to keep it on the high lane. Like, he ran him down quickly. It wasn't like, he's catching him 1/10 a lap and he barely caught him on the last lap. No, he had 8 laps to make that move. He did not need to throw it in there then. I think that was just a poor move. And it isn't the first time we've seen that from Tyler Reddick. I believe there was a time where Harvick was running him down. It might have been at Darlington. Harvick was running him down. And I vaguely remember, you know how like the whole like pitting, if you pit a lap earlier than the guy, you'll end up coming out ahead through the pit cycle on green flag. And I think Harvick had caught him and then immediately went down pit road to pass him. And Reddick was like, oh shit, I should pit with him same time. And then came down and like wrecked both. Like, I love Tyler Reddick. I don't think that Tyler Reddick is a dirty driver. I'm not walking away from this weekend. I mean, the same shit happened to him at Bristol Dirt when he was going for his first win ever because Chase Briscoe threw it in there. Granted, that was dirt. They're racing on dirt, and it's Bristol, and it was the last turn of the race. I could probably give Tyler Reddick a little bit of credit if he did that later, but 8 laps to go is way too early.
Maybe that's where it is for me then, I guess, is just in the sense that like I'm taking a little more of some reputation in there. Like,
yeah. I don't think he's
like,
dirty.
I don't consider like Reddick to necessarily. I generally give him some more of the benefit of the doubt in a situation like that in regards to intention. I really don't.
Right.
Like he's yet to show me that he is the kind of person that is going to be intentionally like walling the shit out of people. Right. So I'm giving him a little more benefit of the doubt. And when he's specifically like trying to disarm the situation, getting out of the car, that's when I'm like, I mean, okay, like I'm going to give him something there.
But okay, so then which is it? If it's not intentional, then it's a talent problem. And I don't think it's a talent problem either.
think it's just a bad decision.
Because that was not close, dude. If
That
you
was
go
just a
back and
bad
watch
racing
that
decision.
video,
Yeah.
it was nowhere close to
Yeah, he
clean.
just threw it in there. That was I think he could have set that pass up better. And not only that, we talked about it
probably
before.
It's a lot easy for us to say that. but
Keselowski weared his tires down. Third place was back there and losing ground. So it wasn't a situation like, hey, we're side by side. Like, this is what I thought before I realized Keselowski's tires were killed from racing side by side. I thought Reddick's screwed because if he catches Buescher, either he's not going to be able to pass Buescher, so Buescher wins, or if Buescher realizes I'm screwed, I'm not going to be able to pass, or I'm going to get passed, he's going to make it a living hell for Reddick and pick so that Brad can catch and pass him. Like, he's just stuck between two teammates willing to work together and gel to get this win. So I felt like that was screwed, but that wasn't the case. Brad K was losing ground, so there's really no need to throw it in there with 8 to go and junk both of your cars. It really wasn't a good
That's the
move
other
at
thing.
all.
He cost himself the race too. Like,
Yeah,
Right.
right. Like, it was.
But that's
I
another
understand-
piece of that to take into account as
doesn't
well. Like,
come
he's
off-
in the running as well.
Sure, he doesn't come. I'm not saying that Tyler Reddick is a douche.
Right.
I'm saying Chris Buescher is not a douche either, and
Okay.
he got wrecked, and he didn't really do anything wrong.
Right.
So for him, like, I'm just saying, like, if Denny got out of the car mad at that same thing, if Reddick had done that to Denny, and Denny got out pissed off, would you still feel the same way that it was
Well,
over the top?
But that goes back to part of my initial point, because I think that one of the parts that I think I took issue with was more of the specific comment about, I don't have the sticker on my car. And I think that's what really got me more than anything else.
Because in your brain, you're
That
like,
was the part that got me is as I'm like,
Tyler Reddick's not his
why
job.
should he
Yeah.
really care about that?
Right. Well,
He doesn't race the same manufacturer as you. He's not in
Right.
the same
That-
team as
That's
you.
all what
He has no reason to give a shit about that.
right.
That's true, except for the respectful racing bit. Because if this was, and it's good news for Chris Buescher that we're not even halfway through the season yet. Because if this was the last 3 races, and somebody was trying to get their first win and make it into the playoffs, and someone did that exact same move, it would be a massive deal. Right? Like, Buescher's going to win a race this year. But he's just been wrecked out of winning the last 2 races. He had Larson beat. Larson doored him and won the race.
I wouldn't say he got wrecked out. I think Kansas, even him, says it's clean. I think what hurt him and what hurt
Right.
everybody's feelings about that is that the 17 was announced as the winner first.
Sure.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't think that's a wreck out.
Yeah, I don't think-
He was
Wrecked
within
out,
a
okay.
thousandth of a
Wrecked out was
second.
strong. He has received contact
Right.
that he was not initiating at
Right.
the end of 2 races in a row where he had a very good chance to win the race.
Right.
So all I'm saying, like, the other thing that he said to Reddick there was, "This is war now," and it's like, yeah, because that's 2 races now that he had a
Right.
very good shot to win. He has to get a win.
Right.
Ford has to get wins. RFK has to get wins. Chris Buescher has to get wins. So if he's going to get, he's not going to get bullied by Kyle. He's 6'5", 350. He's a linebacker, dude. He's not going to
250?
get bullied by Kyle Larson and Tyler Reddick.
True.
It's just not going to happen. So the next little guy that does that is probably getting punched in the face.
Well,
Tyler Reddick probably
speaking
got
of-
off easy.
Punching. So this, and I will say this didn't feel like Ross Chastain being needed to teach a lesson. This didn't feel like Noah Gragson or Ty Gibbs needing to be taught a lesson. This felt like 2 brothers fighting, and you don't know, you just love them both, and it's just 2 brothers fighting each other. That's how that one felt. It genuinely
They both
did
come
not
off as good
feel.
dudes, yes.
It
They
genuinely
both come
like
off as good dudes.
I think both of them respect each other in the past, and you know what? In the same way that the first thing Briscoe said to Tyler when he wrecked him was, "That's on me, my bad." Reddick turned around, did the same exact thing, didn't justify it. He said, "That's on me. I threw it in there, lost it. I didn't mean to collect you. That's on me." And I can live with that. I can move on from that. I don't think that Buescher's going to repay the favor. I just think emotions are high. And another thing, NASCAR's rules on making the playoffs and everything. There's no benefit for him for Buescher to finish second. It's winning in for playoffs, right? That's the second thing. Also, on the other flip side, there's no benefit for Reddick now that he's in to take second place and chill. There's not. if he wins, he gets
I
playoff
don't think
points.
that way, man. It's win. It's win.
No, I
It's
get
just
it, but what I mean by
win.
that is it used to be those top 5 days, those top 10, like throwing away second place to finish 30th because threw it in there. It's just different. Not saying that they didn't do that before, but it used to be. Listen, let them have it. Don't throw it in there. Again, this wasn't a situation where he needed to throw it in there, but let's say it was the last turn of the race. Let's take off 8 laps. It's the last turn of the race. Reddick's thinking, I'm not quite there. He's going to block the outside lane. Am I going to throw it in like that to potentially wreck this race car? And right now in the current format, the plus side is playoff points if he does win the race, which means at every stage that we move towards in each round of the playoffs, those playoff points keep separating him from his peers versus what the 130th place finish. That's not going to matter. There's no net negative, essentially, the finishing 30th in this scenario in comparison to what playoff points would do. And I think that in that scenario, that helps influence the fuck it, go for it. Plus, Tyler Reddick is a very much fuck it, I'm going for it mentality. But either way, Brad Keselowski breaks a streak. And listen, when Brad, again, to recap his quick career, Brad was a junior find, if I'm not mistaken, and was slotted to be in Hendrick Motorsports in the 5, right? But Hendrick decided to go a different route, so Brad went to Penske in the 2. At that time, they really weren't that good, right? Penske at this point did not have Logano. I think that they may have had I can't remember the exact time frame, but the whole point is Penske was down, not doing too great. He takes over the Blue Deuce, wins a championship, convinces them to take on Logano. So Logano comes in, wins a championship for them. Everywhere Brad Keselowski goes, he has a great eye for talent. He found Bowman. Bowman was racing for BK Racing for a bit. There's a lot of guys. I think there's a lot of guys. I think they said 80 or 90% of the field, of Cup Series field, is either driven for like Junior Motorsports, Brad Keselowski, maybe like Gibbs or something like that. I can't remember who all it was. But now he goes to Roush. And, dude, the last time the 6 won a non-plate race was like 2006, dude.
That's
like,
wild.
it has been a long time since Roush has been considered. I mean, they lost 4 championship caliber drivers that they had from the early 2000s. Kenseth, Edwards, Busch, and Biffle. And since then, nothing. So, kudos to Keselowski for going to that team, reviving it, allowing Chris Buescher, who was on that team, kind of wasting away. Obviously, that kind of talent wasting away. Now look at him. I think we would all see him as a clear top 10 driver and clearly one of the best forwards in the field right now.
I think I mean, if you, it's easy to say, but like if you take away Logano and Blady's championships the last 2 years, Chris Buescher's been carrying the water for Ford for like
Right.
a while.
Right.
I mean, he was flirting with a win last year before he even had that streak.
Right.
So, I mean, RFK seems to be like, it was front row early in the year, and now RFK seems to have found something. And those guys are quick, man. They're gonna.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like
I think Buescher's gonna win at least one race this year.
it doesn't feel like flash in the pan. That's all I'm saying. Is last year 3 out of 5 is crazy. 3 out of 5 is crazy, and to call that flash in the pan in any capacity would be wrong. But at the end of the day, you could say they just hit at the right times and he got some lucky breaks. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Now,
Well,
it's like, whoa,
yeah.
They're for real.
Well, that's the other thing in regards to just Buescher in general. Like, if this had been a year and a half ago, I don't think any of us would have been sitting here. Like, I know my feeling is like maybe I'm not taking the other situation quite as seriously because I feel like Buescher's going to win a race this year.
Right.
And if you'd have come to me a year and a half ago and would have said, like, so do you feel confident that Chris Buescher is going to win a race or 2 every year? Like, I would have looked at you like you were nuts.
Right.
But that's where we are.
Right.
Buescher has moved his way up at this point to he's somebody who you have to worry about, and then he's going to contend. He's going to be somebody that you do have to be, like, pretty sure he's likely going to get at least one out of the year. And we're coming up on a point where that might not necessarily just mean a great year. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like
They're-
it's probably not going to be a fluky win either.
Yeah, I mean, I don't.
Just
Again-
avoid all the Chevys and Toyotas.
Yeah,
That'd
I
be
mean,
fine.
if they can find some consistency at road courses to make sure they can get through the Roval and Watkins Glen without losing a playoff spot. And what's crazy to me is like Brad has this horrible reputation with road courses, and then I tell people that like the greatest road course finish of all time in NASCAR history is Brad Keselowski with like a V8 supercar driver going no snow. It's crazy, but I just don't think
Props
that.
to my cousin Jason Thomas. I don't know if he's going to
Dude,
listen.
he's
My guy,
stoked. I
since
know
I've
he
been a
was stoked.
fan, He's
Yeah.
finally, I've seen Brad K get a win, and my cousin was just over the moon, I'm sure.
Hey, that means we're next, brother. Since you started, has
We
Bowman
gotta
won a
be
race
next.
since you started watching?
Nope.
Nope. So yeah,
Check another one off the
2022.
list. It's been the Denny show since I started watching
Jesus.
NASCAR.
Jesus.
The Denny show, eh?
Yep.
So
Gosh, it feels great to have so much to have walked away and so much awesome glory to walk away from that with.
so great
Gosh,
weekends
I've
of
just
racing.
carried so much away from that.
Great weekends of racing. Back-to-back weeks. And like I said, and I've said it before, a mile and a half is the best racing on the fucking circuit. Y'all were talking about Atlanta was so great. Look, we got the closest NASCAR
Atlanta
finish
was
in
great.
years, and guess what? A mile and a half gave us the closest ever. So I will take my flowers here for the best racing in the
Your
sport.
prediction that they would be 2/1000ths of a second faster. Sure. bud.
Nailed it.
Also, mile and a half racing is good. Bold take, bro.
Oh, yeah.
Big bold take.
No,
Mile and
the
a half
best.
racing is good in the,
The
Gen
best.
7 car. Also, too, so this does raise a question that I did want to ask you guys because it's something that I've kind of been pondering as far as coming into the middle of the season. But like, do you think anybody's pointing in this year? I mean, it's a little bit different
Probably.
than where we were last year, where the winners list was a lot more singles. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Probably.
yeah,
I mean, I'm not gonna call my shot on Hoop, but we'll get.
I think we're at 8 drivers in the playoffs now. I think we got
Oh.
the field halfway set.
One, Byron Suarez, Larson Bell, Denny,
Brad,
Elliott, Reddick. Yeah, we're 8. We're halfway.
Truex is second in points with no wins. Does he get a win?
I think he does. I mean, we're coming up on some good Truex tracks. Sonoma's here in a couple weeks, and Worldwide Technology.
Sorry.
Ty Gibbs probably going to point his way in the way things are looking right now with no wins. Blaney might fool around and get himself a win. I mean, Alex Bowman's definitely not going to win a race, and he's 9th in points right now. So
Yeah, if anybody's gonna, I mean, I think Wallace has got to put it together at some point. I mean, there's still Daytona. There's still a couple super speedway races coming up.
16?
We got
16?
Huh? Yeah, 16
16
total.
drivers make the playoffs, right?
I don't think
Yeah.
16, and I do think SVG wins one of those road courses, so I think that's one winner that's not going to matter. And how much does it suck that he doesn't get to be in the All-Star race because they can't get a ride for him? International racing star wins
Yeah.
his first NASCAR, and we can't get somebody can't just loan him a car. I mean, yes, he's going to finish dead last because he isn't ready for the Cup rides on fucking short tracks, but that's so lame. That's so lame that SVG is not racing. He deserves
Agree.
it.
Didn't know that, but agree.
Yeah,
He's an all-star in all of our hearts.
Yeah.
That's right.
and he's putting it together. I'm super excited, and this is a good transition to the silly season stuff that I've heard. Let's get some reaction. So first of all, the confirmation: McDowell is out of the 34 starting next year, which is kind of crazy considering Front Row Motorsports kind of becoming a premier Ford team, right? And they've had some
Big
speed.
loss for them.
They've had some speed, extremely fast on the super speedways for sure. But he's going to go to Spire. It looks like that's going to be in favor of kind of having some. I mean, McDowell's been in the sport for a long time. He used to drive for Michael Waltrip Racing part time. You know what I'm saying? He's been in and through it. Spire has apparently got money, but I'll say this: that money ain't showing up on race day, right? Hocevar looks like a rookie. Corey LaJoy has been whatever. Zane Smith can't keep the car pointed straight. So I'm very concerned about that call. I wonder if that being said, right? Who finished 9th this week was Haley, who left Colleague, went to Rick Ware Racing, and he's getting top 20s and top 10s with that car. Well, this is the first top 10. But shout out to Justin Haley. Meanwhile, the guy in the 31, do you guys even know who's driving the 31 right now? Exactly. That's how far back Daniel Hemrick is in the fucking field.
Hemrick,
doing nothing, right?
Yeah.
So I thought that was a bad call. So, I mean, if he's got enough sponsorship dollars or Spire's able to promise some stuff, and maybe McDowell has his own sponsorship. I don't know how that works with Front Row
Where is
Motorsport.
Hendrick Jr. at this point, though?
I don't know, man. It feels like that's their. It feels like Hocevar is Hendrick Jr. It feels like if there's. Because, again, all the Hendrick guys are so young right now. The oldest Hendrick driver is what, 29, 30? It's Bowman?
Something like that. Yeah.
So, like, and I will admit, Bowman is the only one that's closest to the hot seat, and I would argue he's in the hot seat. If he, he's got like 80 races without a win, and a Hendrick car is getting there. But right now, the only Chevy drivers on the map to take one of those rides would be, again, Hocevar. Carruth obviously has huge Hendrick backing now. And it might just be that for Alex. We'll just be like, listen, Ally loves you. You're in the ride until Rajah's ready. I don't know how it's going to work.
Right.
But yeah, I don't really see Spires I feel like they regressed. I feel like I heard they were going to be.
Yeah, they were promising at the beginning of the year. I think we were all three excited about what Spire had, and then just kind of never really materialized so far.
Right. I mean, honestly, I would take John Hunter Nemechek's performances recently over. And also, shout out to John Hunter Nemechek. Did the entire Xfinity race without power steering. And then turn around and did the Cup race the next day. Gnarly.
That's crazy.
Dude, it was 5 laps into the race. And they were like, John Hunter Nemechek, because he wasn't driving a Joe Gibbs car. He was driving a Sam Hunt racing car. And they were like, John Hunter Nemechek's reported he does not have power steering. And I was like, at Darlington? In this heat? Good God. Good God. So shout out to him. But
thank God it was an Xfinity race and it was a little shorter.
Right. But I mean, he finished well. So colleague, I talked about Hemrick. There's some rumors here that Trackhouse and Colleague might be merging. That would take, I think what that ends up doing is that puts Zane Smith and SVG, they would get the Colleague charters, right, for Cup. That allows Trackhouse to put their funding towards that, and Colleague can go back to being just the Xfinity dominance that we've seen from them. And all of their drivers are kind of Xfinity lifers, right? AJ Allmendinger kind of likes those cars more. Hemrick could go back down and race there, and that kind of aligns with what happened when we saw like who they put in the 16, right? Who's in the 16 now? They got Josh Williams, AJ Allmendinger, not really guys that are looking. Well, maybe Josh Williams is looking to make the Cup ride, but he's not ready for a Cup ride. No. And then Hemrick, dude got 1 win in Xfinity in a Joe Gibbs ride. And yes, it was for a championship, but, for all intents and purposes, Austin Cindric won that championship. So in my mind, I think that's got some validity to it that really allows Trackhouse to enter the SVG full-time next year. Zane Smith gets to stay full-time. That's already a Trackhouse car that's being prepped, or a Colleague car that's being prepped by Trackhouse. And if they combine their resources, it doesn't feel like Trackhouse with their current personnel bringing in 2 new cars, because I don't think that's a good idea as they are. I don't think Trackhouse buying a charter, even one,
charters,
is good with their current. But if they merge with Colleague and they bring those, that experience and that body and that, admin type stuff, I think that could work out for them.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, interesting. I mean, if I'm anyone in the Chevy camp that's one of the smaller teams right now, Trackhouse is kind of like, if you want to merge with Trackhouse, Trackhouse, let's do it.
Right.
The SHR front row thing.
Right. Yeah. So
don't love that.
So here's the talk on SHR and FRM. This is, I guess, coming from like Door Bumper Clear. Apparently Custer's impressed and he might be in line for the 34. I think Gregson makes a lot of sense for the 34. Or whatever, but it looks like Custer to the 34 will be the move. Briscoe stays at Ford and goes possibly to the 21.
That'll make for a very sad Corey.
I think that would be super dope. I think Briscoe is the perfect driver for the 21. If they're gonna put and if Ford is willing, like if the Ford funding for Briscoe goes into that ride, that could be. I mean, him essentially as a Penske 4th car. I mean, that's what do you mean it's a bad day for you? Him and Blaney are now teammates. And now you get to ride that into the sunset. You get to kind of join your true allegiances.
Not their teammate.
Huh? Yeah.
That's
So Wood Brothers, the Wood Brothers 21 is
yeah, I
Penske
know.
approved.
It's
Yeah.
a Penske car, blah blah blah. It's
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's a single car team, but they are Penske. It's a Penske. It's going to be considered especially if you bring in Briscoe.
Penske Light.
Okay, so where does Harrison Burton go?
Gone.
That's the big
Gone. Xfinity. He's out. And apparently Gragson is the hot commodity. Gragson's got.
Glad that we solved that quickly. You're like, yeah,
he's out. Harrison Burton does not belong in Cup. Listen, all respect to you, Harrison, but no, you're in a ride that people covet. You know, that historically by itself, without additional funding from the driver, has been a ride where it's like, if you're the potential future of Penske, you know, Blaney was there, DiBenedetto was there, Trevor Bayne was there, guys that were like on their way up, young, good, hot prospects. Go prove your worth in the 21. Chase Briscoe comes to 21 and brings more Ford funding. That becomes a top tier Penske ride by virtue of just another Penske prep, because Ford wants Briscoe. That's the word on the street. Is that Ford is
he's their like golden boy for the Ford Performance Racing School.
So
like he is NASCAR for the Ford Performance School.
Right. I like that. I don't know how I feel about Custer. If I'm making that call, I want to keep Gragson in a ride. But it looks like it would be Briscoe, Custer to the 34, Barry, and then again, I don't know what Gragson's deal is, if he's a free agent after this season or what the case is. It looks like they like Barry, and they'll probably keep Barry in that scenario. Again, there's been a lot of talk about them potentially shopping. I know 23XI is probably looking for 23XI, 2311. Sorry, the logo is X and I. Sorry. 2311's looking for one. Somebody said Legacy's looking for one. Don't. Stay away. Just work on yourselves, fellas. Just work on your two cars.
Y'all need to be single for a while, you know.
Please.
Figure yourselves out.
Please.
Hey, they have 3 cars. Okay.
Jimmy Jam.
Not all the time, but just
right
for the first few laps of the race that Jimmy Johnson's in the car.
Hey, whatever. So either way, I'm really excited. That's a big shakeup in the Chevy camp. That's a big shakeup in the Ford camp. I feel like Toyota, outside of adding a one driver, here's another thing that I think could happen. This is my silly season idea. I think Kyle Busch is going to leave RCR. I think Kyle Busch has got a little bit left in the tank. And I think that if Denny can get himself a charter, either one of two things will happen. One, Denny will go to drive the 11 for 2311. And that charter, so he buys a charter and then takes the 11 with him and races for that team. And then that brings Kyle Busch back to Joe Gibbs to run the 18, which is the flagship car for Joe Gibbs, which I think would be really cool. Or flip it, Denny stays at Joe Gibbs and Kyle Busch comes in and drives. I don't know if he would get the 18. I don't know if Joe Gibbs would relinquish that, but he drives. But I think that him back in Toyota makes a lot of sense. I think the RCR stuff was great last year. Happy they got some wins. That team is in a bad spot too. There's just no speed in those cars. Genuinely not doing anything productive. And Kyle would probably rather be out than in. So.
Well, if there's one thing we know about Kyle Busch, he'll usually stay pretty quiet, reserved, and not make very many bones about what's going on. And, you know, and I mean, he'll just be perfectly content being wherever he is. Just be happy to be in the show, you know.
Genuinely happy guy.
So. Yeah, just, you know, notoriously just happy where he's at, Kyle Busch.
But if he does that, that's a seat open at RCR. Could shake things up more. Could Gragson go back to Chevy to drive, you know, the 8 for RCR and you know, with his Bass Pro, like he has Bass Pro Shop money and they tend to be more driver specific. So the 19 already has Bass Pro Shop. So maybe the 19, maybe Noah to the 19. I don't know, but Noah's performing well enough that I think he's going to be back to being commodity, and all of the Instagram post stuff is kind of past. If the world can move on from what happened with Larson, then I think Noah's going to be fine in that regard. Some more news. Amazon Prime announces like a 4-part Dale Sr. documentary. That's cool. Always love it when we get more stuff. I'm sorry. Maybe it's because I didn't watch Dale. I'm kind of over it. Maybe we could do a different driver documentary. But maybe because Dale has making the move to Amazon, there's some as long as there's some insight new stuff. There's been a lot of information on Dale Sr. that's been out.
Yeah.
Plus, if you watch the Dale Jr. download, you get a lot of stories. I'm just kind of like, the dude, like he's been gone for a long time. I kind of wish they would maybe focus somewhere else. Maybe Jimmy. I'm kidding. Don't do a Jimmy documentary. I love Jimmy Johnson. No, don't. No, I love Jimmy for a lot of reasons.
You're a ridiculous person.
This is what I want. If I could get a documentary, I want an early 2000s documentary. I don't know how to phrase it, but like Ryan Newman and what they were doing with those cars. Like, if you go back, and we've talked about it before on the pod, Ryan Newman owns like every qualifying record at these tracks from the early 2000s. There's a clip flowing around on Pocono where he's in third gear around Pocono, doesn't shift up, just rides this thing at 12,000 RPMs, flying. And he was a known engineer out of like Purdue, I think. I want some that. If you're gonna do a Jimmy thing, it's a Chad Knaus. Give me a Chad Knaus documentary. What was the true engineering behind NASCAR that led to the success?
I have a counterpoint to this.
What?
Counterpoint is everything that you just said is exactly why you are not the target audience for this documentary.
Yeah, because I can't wait to watch.
I'm not being a jerk here.
Let me watch 9 hours of a guy that isn't racing and his son's not racing. Great. I just learned all about Dale Sr. What's next, dude?
The thing, like, because also they're not just doing this like for that. This is part of a series that they're doing. They're also doing a saga about Madden. They're talking about famous Game 7s, and they're talking about a Chiefs fan that was Robin Banks. Like, they're doing like they're jumping in on like Netflix doing The Last Dance and ESPN's 30 for 30, and like I mean, Amazon already does like some pretty good sports series like documentaries, like the ones that they've done with like some of the different teams and stuff like that. They're fantastic. But again, I understand what you're saying, and I don't disagree. I'm just saying that like you have to just take into account that documentary is being released for the casual fan, not the person who is interested in the engineering of the
you know what I mean? I get it.
I'm with you. I want to see that too.
Right.
You started talking about Ryan Newman and qualifying records in third gear, and I was like, this man is not understanding the target audience for this.
If you're gonna
you're a smart enough guy.
Here's the thing: it's not. If this was the first Dale Jr. documentary or Dale Sr. documentary that was coming out, I'm all for it. But Dale's got 5 documentaries, a fucking movie, and a son. Had shared every story under the sun on over 150 hours worth of podcast. I'm not exhausted at Dale Sr. content. I get it, but like, I just. Listen, if you're going to commit some more, if this is the gateway drug that gets to more NASCAR related docs, I will concede that let's do it. But if this is a one-off and we're just going to do Dale Sr. and it's just like, that's it, like, okay. What does that do for the current? Right. Give me more new info. But that being said, Amazon Prime is going to be doing next year's 600. They're going to be doing some NASCAR races. If they find a way to incorporate their next gen and all of those like next gen stats that they have for the NFL in a way to use the technology and power of Amazon and how open NASCAR is with SMT data and like their just radios and stuff like that, the overlays that could occur, I'm very excited, and I hope not. And I think they brought on Dale Jr. and that I mean, if you do anything like bring on Dale Jr. into your camp as you're prepping to deliver something, I trust it. So excited for that.
And he's getting in on the ground floor of it, right? So like their broadcasts are just starting.
Right.
So you have a stock car racing lifer in there from day one telling them this is what makes a great broadcast.
Right. Well, they're making this as a great, the other piece of that too is that like, so Amazon has been taking such a heavy dive into sports in general, like these docs, and that's something they've done. They've been doing other live sports. When PBC was losing their contract with Fox and going to do like looking for a home for their boxing and where they were going, Amazon was definitely up there on the list as a place that they were going to go. The NFL, they took that on. There's been other talks about like NASCAR taking on other like live sports broadcasts. I mean, it's it's been in talks that Amazon might be the home of NASCAR, you know,
Yeah.
for at least some semblance of their streaming content for a while
And
now.
if
So
if it's
it all
available
makes
to
sense
watch
to
on
me.
Twitch and shit like that, like it just bringing new eyes to the sport would be great, fantastic. And
Yeah.
yeah, I would love to be able to do something like that content wise to help supplement that. But as we're getting approach here, we do have a hard cutoff time today. We're close. I wanted to bring something up. I saw this today on Bob Pockrass's Twitter. So this weekend we got the All Star race. We got a freshly paved North Wilkesboro, and of course, if you remember last year, the only person that could pass was Kyle Larson because he ran the apron and everybody else couldn't, and it was very much deemed a boring All Star race outside of the North Wilkesboro nostalgia. But they are bringing a soft tire compound and a hard tire compound. There are two tire compounds that are going to be running this race, and everybody's required to start on the soft compound. The Goodyear is red on those tires, whereas the yellow. So a little bit of like looking to, I don't know if this was planned like last second. I had never heard anything about this up until this moment, up until I read the tweet today. But I think it's a credible look at what we could see of the potential. I don't want to see this for a mile and a half, but if you go, hey, road courses and or short track racing, we can have different tire compounds available to you, and you have to make those decisions. Anything to help.
It just warms my IndyCar loving heart. I love this. I just think I think it's fantastic.
It's one of the perks of being a sport where it's different from week to week to week.
Right.
And you could literally tell me that this week they have decided that during one pit stop, we have to throw a box of live squirrels into the car one time. And I'd be like, I will watch that. I will watch that.
Right.
Like, sure. Be like, why not?
Right.
I love that. That's
tire compound. Sure. Why not?
Now,
like, drivers have to drive with their helmet on backwards for 5 laps. Like,
right. It'll be sick. And they do cool stuff. We have the Pit Crew Challenge coming in, I think, on Friday. We've got the All-Star Open qualifying, and on Saturday we've got the All-Star Race heat races. And then we will have on Sunday the Open at 5:30 and then the All-Star Race at 8 o'clock. The week after, we're all going to the 600. So the next time we see you on the podcast, we'll have probably a video put together of like just the experience. We got a lot going on. I wish we could dive into that today, but it's going to be sick. And then worldwide technology. I think we should probably end up just doing a podcast after the 600. Let's just do that. Let's just riding this thing back. We've had a little bit of a breather. Corey got to move his whole house and get a week off of the pod. So let's reconvene.
Not subject them to another just you and me pod. Right?
Well, we will reconvene after the 600 and see you guys, because the racing was too good to take a 3-week break. And that includes a shitty Dover race. All right, we got past the struggle bus of Martinsville and Richmond and just races that just weren't producing the product. And then we got reminded at how great our sport is. So we get some good races here. 3 different types of tracks, right? Short track, longest race of the year, the greatest day in racing, and then worldwide technology will be interesting. So I kind of want to do a break for then. So we will see you guys then, right?
Yeah, that sounds like a good idea.
Yeah.
I'm totally before that. But yeah, that's going to wrap things up for us this week. Please make sure you check us out on YouTube and Spotify under the name Intentional Rec. Please like, subscribe, share, tell all your friends. You can also find us on Twitter and TikTok at IntRecPod. That's at INTWRECKPOD. Also, make sure you check out the Bandit Racing League, where we will be a caution sponsor.
And racing.
Talladega tomorrow.
And racing.
Talladega.
What's that?
Talladega, Wednesday the 15th.
Yep.
There it is. There it is. Yeah, you actually get to see your pals here in the pod, in the cars. So check that out. Take a look at the back of the pack. You'll get to see your buddies there. Follow us, Talk Racing, and we will catch y'all in a couple of weeks.
Peace.
See ya.